Why does a bottle of mineral water cost $2 in a supermarket but $200 in a desert? This seemingly simple price difference reveals the core secret of economics, the law of supply and demand. Gregory Mankow's Principles of Economics 8th edition is hailed as the ultimate introduction to economics. With global sales exceeding 10 million and translations in over 20 languages, it has shaped generations' thinking. This book not only unveils the mechanics of markets but also teaches us to make wiser decisions through an economic lens. From buying or renting a home to investing or starting a business, it illuminates the logic behind a complex world. Today, let's dive into this classic to explore the mysteries of economics and learn to navigate life with rational thinking. Part 1. The Foundation of Economics 10 Principles. Economics studies how choices are made in a world of scarce resources. Mankiw begins with 10 principles, grouped into 3 categories: individual decisions, interactions, and the broader economy. These principles are the bedrock of understanding markets, like Newton's laws in physics, simple yet profoundly powerful. How individuals make decisions. The first principle is people face trade-offs. There's no free lunch. Every choice has an opportunity cost. Take Ruoxi Ho, a product manager in Beijing, considering an online MBA program. She calculates, the course costs $14,000, and 20 hours weekly means sacrificing family time or workouts. This is opportunity cost, the value of what you give up by choosing one option over another. Mankiw reminds us that rational decisions require clarity on costs, not just money but time, energy, and emotions. The second principle is the cost of something is what you give up to get it. Consider Warren Buffett, who avoids trendy tech stocks, focusing on familiar sectors like Coca-Cola. He once said, "I gave up tech's high returns but avoided risks in unfamiliar fields." This cost as sacrifice mindset made Buffett a legendary investor over decades. Ordinary people can apply this too. For instance, quitting a high-paying but stressful job might yield health and family time, trade-off requiring clear cost awareness. The third and fourth principles are rational people think at the margin and people respond to incentives. Marginal thinking weighs the extra costs and benefits of a decision. For example, Apple prices iPhones by analyzing the marginal revenue profit versus marginal cost production and marketing. If benefits exceed costs, they ramp up production. Incentives are everywhere. In 2018, China's subsidies for electric vehicles spurred companies like BYD to boost production, rapidly growing market share. This policy fueled the EV industry's rise but required careful regulation to ensure subsidy efficiency. Mankiw warns that incentives can have unintended consequences, requiring cautious policy design. For instance, ride-hailing drivers, lured by high subsidies, worked longer hours, but fatigue increased accident risks. How people interact. The 5th to 7th principles focus on market interactions. The 5th, trade can make everyone better off, highlights the power of specialization and exchange. In the 18th century, Adam Smith described a pin factory. One person draws wire, another cuts, another sharpens, far outpacing solo work. Today, global trade combines Chinese-made phone chips with US-designed software, benefiting consumers worldwide. But trade has costs, like US-China tariffs raising prices and harming both sides. Mankiw stresses that trade thrives on specialization, but protectionism can impoverish everyone. The 6th principle, markets are usually a good way to organize economic activity, emphasizes the invisible hand. In China's early 2000s housing boom, urbanization drove up prices, spurring developers to build more, stabilizing some cities' markets. This self-regulation showcases market forces. But markets aren't perfect. When information asymmetry or externalities arise, government intervention is needed. For example, during the bike-sharing craze, demand surged, but cities later capped bikes and enforced recycling to optimize resources. The 7th principle, governments can sometimes improve market outcomes, addresses market failures. In the 2008 financial crisis, U.S. subprime issues triggered global turmoil, but government bailouts and stimulus averted worse outcomes. Yet over-intervention can reduce efficiency. In China, market-oriented reforms have driven inefficient firms to upgrade, fostering high-quality growth. Mankiw advises that government action must balance efficiency and fairness precisely. How the economy as a whole works. The final three principles tackle macroeconomics. The eighth, a country's standard of living depends on its ability to produce goods and services. Japan's post-war rise relied on innovation and productivity, while some resource-rich nations stagnate due to poor management. The ninth, prices rise when the government prints too much money. Zimbabwe's 2008 hyperinflation saw trillion Zimbabwean dollars buy a loaf of bread, a result of excessive money printing. The 10th, society faces a short-run trade-off between inflation and unemployment. China's recent job-stabilizing policies prioritize low unemployment, sometimes at the cost of mild inflation. These 10 principles, though simple, permeate every aspect of life. From bargaining at a market to national budgeting, they offer a framework to find order in chaos. Part 2. Microeconomics: How Markets Work. Microeconomics studies individual and firm decisions and how markets coordinate them. Mankiw uses the supply and demand model to explain price, output, and efficiency. The power of supply and demand. The supply and demand model is economics' cornerstone. Supply and demand curves are like the market's DNA, determining prices. In 2019, African swine fever slashed China's pork supply, spiking prices to $10 per kilogram, with supermarkets imposing limits. High prices spurred farmers to expand production, and by 2021, supply recovered, dropping prices to $3. This self-regulation shows how demand drives prices, incentivizing supply until equilibrium is reached. Mankiw illustrates with a pizza market example. In a small town, student demand raises pizza prices from $10 to $12, prompting shops to produce more until prices stabilize at $11. This demonstrates market's dynamic balance. But in reality, supply and demand aren't always perfect. During the 2020 pandemic, mask demand surged, but production lagged, spiking prices until government controls intervened. Supply and demand also shape global markets. The 2022 Russia-Ukraine conflict drove up natural gas prices, doubling European heating costs. Mankiw notes that external shocks disrupt equilibrium, but markets adapt through price adjustments. Germany's rapid shift to LNG imports eased its energy crisis, showcasing market resilience. Elasticity and market response. Elasticity measures how sensitive supply or demand is to price or income changes. Gasoline has low supply elasticity, as refineries take time to expand. Luxury goods like Hermes bags have high income elasticity, booming in prosperous times. Mankiw cites the 1970s oil crisis. OPEC's supply cuts spiked prices, but demand barely fell due to reliance on cars. Understanding elasticity predicts market reactions. China's high-speed rail tickets have low price elasticity, as alternatives like planes or cars are costlier. A 2017 fare hike of 10% on the Beijing-Shanghai line barely dented ridership but boosted revenue. Conversely, a 50% price hike by some bike-sharing firms in 2019 lost customers, as buses were a cheap substitute. Elasticity also shapes tax policy. Cigarettes have low tax elasticity, as addicts are price insensitive. China's 2015 tobacco tax hike slightly cut sales but significantly boosted revenue for public health. This low elasticity, high tax strategy regulates behavior in many countries. Market failures and externalities. Markets aren't always efficient. Externalities occur when transactions affect uninvolved parties. Factory pollution raising nearby residents' medical costs is a negative externality. In 2015, China's carbon trading pilot forced firms to pay for emissions, internalizing external costs. Mankiw notes that such policies correct market failures but require careful cost-benefit analysis. Positive externalities, like education, benefit society beyond the individual. OECD data show university graduates generate tax revenue far exceeding public education costs. China's double first-class university plan boosts national competitiveness through education investment. Information asymmetry, another market failure, plagues used car markets, where sellers know more than buyers, creating a lemons market. Mankiw suggests government-mandated disclosures or third-party certifications, like vehicle reports, improve efficiency. China's used car platforms, like Guazi, reduce asymmetry with standardized inspections and guarantees. Consumer and producer behavior. Consumers maximize utility, firms maximize profits. Mankiw uses budget constraints and indifference curves to analyze consumer choices. Take Aaron Carter, a London freelancer with a $4,000 monthly income, balancing rent and entertainment. Spending $2,600 on rent leaves $1,400 for movies or trips. Economics shows the opportunity cost. One more movie means one less outing. Firms optimize via cost curves. In 2020, Tesla's Shanghai factory cut Model 3 prices from $70,000 to $42,000 through economies of scale, boosting sales. Mankiw stresses that firms aim for the lowest average cost, requiring innovation and market insight. Huawei's 5 grams equipment, with R&D and supply chain efficiencies, captured 30% of the global market. Consumer-firm interactions involve game theory. In 2019, Chinese food delivery platforms Meituan and Ela.me offered subsidies, benefiting consumers. Mankiw notes that the prisoner's dilemma in price wars can hurt long-term profits, suggesting cooperation, like industry standards, is more sustainable. Part 3: Macroeconomics, the pulse of the economy. Macroeconomics examines overall economic performance, like growth, unemployment, and inflation. Mankiw starts with national income accounting, unfolding the economy's mechanics. National income and economic growth. Gross domestic product (GDP) measures a nation's total goods and services. In 2022, China's GDP hit $18 trillion, second globally, but per capita GDP was $12,000, far below the US's $70,000. This gap reflects productivity differences. Mankiw stresses that growth hinges on technological progress and capital accumulation. South Korea's 1,960 seconds export-led policies, investing in education and infrastructure, made it a tech powerhouse by 2020. Growth faces challenges. The 2008 financial crisis stalled global GDP, but China's $600 billion stimulus spurred infrastructure, stabilizing the economy, though it raised local debt. Mankiw warns that short-term fixes can mask long-term issues. India's digital reforms, like unified payment systems, boosted GDP but are limited by infrastructure bottlenecks. Growth also raises distribution issues. Mankiw uses the Gini coefficient to measure income inequality. In 2021, China's common prosperity policies, like rural revitalization, narrowed urban-rural gaps. These initiatives redistributed resources to rural areas, boosting local economies through infrastructure and education. Mankiw cautions, however, that excessive intervention risks stifling innovation and economic dynamism. Balancing equity and efficiency remains a core challenge for policymakers worldwide. Money and inflation. Money is the economy's lifeblood, driving transactions and growth. Mankiw's quantity theory of money explains inflation. When money supply grows faster than output, prices rise. In the 1920s, Germany's Weimar Republic printed money to pay debts, causing hyperinflation. A loaf of bread soared from 1 mark to 10 billion marks in months. In contrast, China's central bank has kept inflation around 2% annually, despite an 8% yearly money supply growth. This stability stems from precise monetary controls, balancing growth and price levels. During the 2020 pandemic, the U.S. Federal Reserve slashed rates and unleashed quantitative easing. Inflation in the U.S. hit 9% by 2022, a sharp contrast to China's steady approach. Mankiw warns that monetary policy is a double-edged sword, capable of sparking growth or fueling bubbles. In 2020, China's stock market surged, then crashed as loose money policies inflated valuations. Government tightened regulations, stabilizing markets but underscoring the risks of overstimulation. Inflation shapes consumer behavior, often forcing tough choices. In 2022, global energy price spikes raised food and transport costs. Chinese consumers shifted to local brands like Li Ning over Nike, embracing consumption downgrading. Mankiw advises central banks to use interest rates and open market operations to balance inflation and growth. Unemployment and the Phillips curve. Unemployment reflects an economy's health, affecting millions' livelihoods. In 2023, China maintained a steady urban unemployment rate of about 5%. Policies promoting flexible employment, like gig work and vocational training, supported young workers. Mankiw's concept of the natural rate of unemployment explains persistent joblessness. Even in healthy economies, frictional unemployment job searches and structural unemployment skill mismatches persist. The Phillips curve illustrates a short-term trade-off. Lower unemployment can drive higher inflation. In 2021, the U.S. stimulus of $1.9 trillion cut unemployment from 6% to 4%, but inflation surged, showing the trade-off's limits. Mankiw notes that, long-term, the Phillips curve may flatten, requiring structural reforms like job training. China's flexible employment policies, encouraging roles in e-commerce and live streaming, eased youth unemployment. Technology also reshapes labor markets, creating both risks and opportunities. Artificial intelligence threatens low-skill jobs but spawns roles like data analysts. Mankiw draws on history. 19th-century textile machines displaced weavers but birthed the clothing industry. Retraining programs can ease these transitions, turning disruption into progress. International trade and exchange rates. Trade fuels global prosperity but sparks tensions. Mankiw's theory of comparative advantage shows why trade benefits all. China excels at manufacturing clothing, while the U.S. leads in chip design. Exchange creates mutual gains. The 2018 U.S.-China trade war, with its tariffs, raised consumer prices, proving barriers harm both sides. In 2023, China's exports to the U.S. fell 10%, but ASEAN trade grew, showing market adaptability. Exchange rates shape trade competitiveness. In 2015, China's yuan devalued by 5%, boosting exports but triggering capital outflows. Mankiw explains that floating exchange rates self-correct trade imbalances, though short-term volatility requires intervention. Brazil's 2020 currency devaluation of 30% spurred agricultural exports but raised import costs, fueling inflation. Trade also ties to geopolitics, amplifying global interdependence. The 2022 EU energy crisis, driven by reliance on Russian gas, pushed investment in renewables. Mankiw suggests this dependency trend could reshape global trade patterns. Part 4. Applying economic thinking. Economics is more than theory, it's a toolkit for solving problems. Mankiw urges us to weave economic reasoning into daily life, from personal choices to societal issues. Personal decisions, rationality and behavioral economics. Behavioral economics challenges the rational person model. Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman shows how psychological biases skew decisions. Loss aversion makes investors cling to falling stocks, missing better opportunities. Mankiw suggests reframing, view selling not as a loss but as freeing capital for new investments. Consider Ruok Siho, the Shanghai professional choosing between a downtown apartment or a suburban home. Economics compares utility, but behavioral economics warns of the anchoring effect. She might overvalue the city center due to its prestige. Mankiw's solution: list priorities, commute time, comfort, budget, and score each option rationally. Behavioral insights also explain shopping habits. In 2021, China's Double 11 sales used pre-sales and discounts to spark impulse buys. Mankiw calls this the endowment effect. Owning a coupon makes people reluctant to lose it. Consumers can counter this with strict budgets, resisting manipulative marketing. Business strategy, costs and competition. Firms leverage economics to sharpen strategies. Starbucks' $6 coffee in China isn't cost-driven but reflects brand premium and consumer willingness to pay. Mankiy's price discrimination theory explains how discounts and seasonal drinks maximize profits. Small businesses benefit too. A Guangzhou cookie brand in 2021 targeted affluent women via social media, doubling sales. Mankiw advises finding niche markets and capturing consumer surplus with tailored value. Pinduoduo's group buy model slashed prices, winning over smaller cities and rivaling e-commerce giants. Market structure shapes competition. Agriculture is perfectly competitive, with prices set by supply and demand. Utilities like water are monopolies, requiring regulation. Smartphones form an oligopoly, where Apple and Huawei vie through innovation. In 2023, Huawei's Mate 60, with its homegrown chip, challenged Apple's dominance, proving technology's competitive edge. Public policy, balancing efficiency and equity. Economics guides policy to balance fairness and efficiency. China's 2018 tax reform raised the income tax threshold to $700 monthly, easing burdens while incentivizing work. Mankiw notes that high taxes can deter innovation, while low taxes widen inequality. Sweden's high-tax welfare system supports equity but drives some entrepreneurs abroad. Climate policy is another test. Global carbon neutrality goals demand emission cuts, but costs burden developing nations. Mankiw's Pigovian tax taxing carbon while subsidizing low-income groups balances environment and equity. China's 2021 carbon market, covering 4 billion tons of emissions, shows policy potential. Technology disrupts industries like ride-hailing, which displaced traditional taxis. Mankiw suggests retraining and transitional aid to ease such shifts. In 2020, Chinese cities offered taxi drivers retraining, smoothing the transition. Global perspective, economics universal reach. Economics applies everywhere from Silicon Valley startups to African coffee farms. Elon Musk's SpaceX cut launch costs from $100 million to $60 million, revolutionizing aerospace via economies of scale. Mankiw stresses that economics helps find leverage points in any field. Ethiopian coffee farmers, through cooperatives, cut transaction costs, boosting exports by 20%. Comparative advantage explains this. Small producers, by collaborating, thrive globally. This logic applies to careers. Focus on your strengths to stand out in competitive markets. Part 5. Advanced applications of economic thinking. Economics tackles complex problems, offering practical solutions. Here are advanced applications showing its depth and versatility. Data-driven decisions. In the big data era, economics and data science converge. Mankiw emphasizes that economic models gain precision through data. Amazon's tailored product recommendations, based on browsing data, boost sales. This personalized pricing leverages consumer surplus, pricing by willingness to pay. China's Douyin TikTok uses algorithms to extend user time, driving ad revenue. Mankiw advises firms to invest in data but respect privacy. China's 2021 Personal Information Protection Law balances data use and user rights. Individuals can use data too. Fitness coach Ruchin Lin tracked diet and exercise, finding high-protein meals optimized results. Using a simple Excel sheet, he compared costs food prices with benefits muscle growth. This data-driven approach mirrors economic optimization, balancing inputs and outputs. Mankiw's insight, applying data to decisions, whether in business or personal life, enhances efficiency. Behavioral insights and policy design. Behavioral economics reshapes how policies influence actions. The UK's Behavioral Insights team used nudging to boost public compliance. For example, rephrasing tax letters to say most people pay on time increased timely filings. Mankiw highlights that such low-cost nudges can transform behavior effectively. In China, Shanghai's 2020 garbage sorting policy used reward points to encourage participation. Recycling rates soared from 10% to 80%, driven by small incentives. Mankiw explains this through the instant gratification bias. People respond to immediate rewards. This principle applies to personal habits too, like setting daily goals to build discipline. Governments and individuals can use these insights to drive lasting change. For instance, China's traffic campaigns use social credit incentives to promote safe driving. Mankiw warns that nudges must be ethical, avoiding manipulation or coercion. Risk management and uncertainty. Economics equips us to navigate uncertainty with calculated choices. Mankiw's expected utility theory weighs risks by probability and payoff. In 2023, volatile global markets pushed investors towards safer assets like bonds and gold. Diversifying portfolios, much like insurance, reduces exposure to shocks. Mankiw's advice: spread risks to smooth out unpredictable fluctuations. Businesses apply this too, like Taiwan's TSMC building factories in the US and Japan. This 2020 to move diversified supply chains, mitigating geopolitical risks. Mankiw's game theory shows such strategies strengthen bargaining power. For individuals, risk management is equally vital. Freelancer Aaron Carter diversified income through writing, consulting, and teaching. This reduced her reliance on any single client, stabilizing her finances. Mankiw emphasizes that economics offers tools to manage life's uncertainties systematically. Social innovation and the shared economy. The shared economy embodies economics' power to create value. Mankiw notes that platforms like Airbnb lower transaction costs for mutual gain. Homeowners rent spare rooms, travelers get affordable stays, and the platform earns commissions. In 2023, Airbnb's global revenue topped $9 billion, showcasing the model's strength. China's Haoshangshu Little Red Book connects users and brands through social seeding. This social e-commerce model creates value by leveraging user-generated content. Mankiw's externality theory explains how user posts generate positive spillover effects. These platforms thrive by aligning incentives for all parties involved. Yet challenges like regulatory gaps can erode trust in shared systems. Mankiw suggests governments ensure fairness through certifications and transparency. China's 2022 regulations on ride-hailing platforms improved driver protections, boosting confidence. The shared economy illustrates how economics fosters innovation in resource allocation. Part 6: Economic Insights and the Future. Economics is a lens for understanding and shaping the world. Mankiw's principles of economics starts with scarcity, urging rational trade-offs. It reveals markets as the interplay of countless individual choices. Looking ahead, economics will tackle new challenges in a changing world. Artificial intelligence may disrupt jobs, requiring policies to retrain workers. Climate change demands redefining growth with sustainable models. Globalization faces headwinds, yet comparative advantage remains key. Mankiw's tools supply and demand, externalities, trade equip us to adapt. China's electric vehicle boom exemplifies economics in action. Subsidies cut consumer costs, scale lowered battery prices, and exports met global demand. In 2023, BYD's exports surged 300%, showing the synergy of markets and policy. Economics also reshapes personal decisions, from small to life-changing. Choosing coffee or tea, renting or buying a home, even voting all involve cost-benefit analysis. Mankiw teaches that rationality isn't cold, it's about clarity in pursuit of better outcomes. In 2025, global uncertainties like US-China tensions and energy transitions loom large. Yet economics' core question, how to choose wisely in scarcity, remains timeless. Mankiw's wisdom encourages curiosity and reasoned choices in a complex world. Conclusion: Principles of economics transforms how we see the world. It reveals the pulse of markets in everyday choices. From entrepreneurs to policymakers, it offers clarity in decision-making. As Mankiw writes, economics studies how to make the best choices in a scarce world. This book is a key, unlocking rational decisions for a better self and society. Let's embrace its lessons, finding our own answers in life's complexity.